the story begins. On an icy cold night, thousands of masked warriors moved in perfect unison, charging toward a figure known only as the Heavenly Demon. It was clear he had been expecting them. Though they numbered in the thousands, these were elite soldiers from the demonic cult, united in one purpose, to bring down the Heavenly Demon. Seeing their approach, he calmly said, "Blood, fear, and chaos. Is that truly what you seek? If that's what you really desire, then allow me to grant it to you, right here, right now." With that, he extended one hand and prepared to strike. In the blink of an eye, the thousands of warriors rushing toward him were slaughtered in the most brutal fashion. Their bodies were ripped apart, completely reduced to blood and pulp. Nothing remained of them. His attack was so savage, the entire battlefield was soon soaked in a crimson downpour of fresh blood. Standing beneath that rain of gore, the Heavenly Demon muttered, "Is this all you're capable of? Pathetic. You really think this is enough to defeat me?" The candidates for the next Heavenly Demon stood frozen in place. They never imagined their entire force would be obliterated with a single strike. The Heavenly Demon then unleashed another power, focused in the palm of his hand. While calling them weak, he watched as they launched a desperate group attack, hoping to overpower him. But before they could land a single blow, their bodies were torn apart, shredded into bits by a storm of raw energy. Screaming in agony, they were all slaughtered in the most gruesome way imaginable. Laughing, the Heavenly Demon declared, "Take a good look. Use your own eyes and witness the true might of a technique known as the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art." As soon as he activated that forbidden art, the ground began to shake violently, and then, out of nowhere, two massive hands emerged from beneath the earth. Realizing what was happening, the remaining warriors panicked and tried to flee, but it was too late. In mere seconds, those giant hands hovered above their heads and then came crashing down, crushing everything in their path. With terrifying force, the hands grabbed hold of the remaining warriors and crushed them along with the surrounding rocks. One of them, barely conscious, muttered weakly, "Is it truly impossible to defeat the Heavenly Demon?" At that moment, their souls were ripped from their bodies, floating into the air, only to be drawn straight into the Heavenly Demon himself. Soaked in blood and surrounded by carnage, he let out a long breath. Then, grinning with satisfaction after annihilating every last enemy, he burst into laughter. So, these were the last of the Heavenly Demon candidates, but from what I've seen, not a single one of them was worthy of the title. Calmly, he glanced around at the devastation he had caused. All he could see was a battlefield littered with thousands of corpses. Muttering to himself, he said, "This place has become so quiet. Perhaps peace is nothing more than a dream in a world ruled by war and drenched in oceans of blood." But suddenly he felt an excruciating pain surge through his chest, an aftermath of using that forbidden martial art. Blood began pouring from his mouth as the devastating side effects took hold. Clutching his chest, he muttered, "Is this the price of using the soul-devouring demonic art? The immense power I gained from consuming thousands of souls? This was the inevitable cost of mastering such a demonic technique, the soul-devouring demonic art, a secret passed down only to the leaders of the demonic cult, an unrivaled power, but one that ultimately consumes its wielder from within." He whispered to himself, "Even if there's a price to pay, I believe I can bear it, unlike the other so-called heavenly demons who couldn't." Suddenly, a thunderous rumble echoed from within the darkness. From the shadows, thousands of glowing eyes stared at him with a terrifying, unrelenting gaze. As death crept closer, chains burst forth and wrapped around him, one after another, locking him in place and restricting every movement. But instead of fear, he let out a mocking laugh. "So, you're trying to drag me down to hell?" With a violent surge of power pulsing through his veins, he shattered the chains with ease. Roaring with fury, he shouted, "You who dares to force me into hell? If that's truly hell, then I'll walk into it on my own terms. Whether it's sulfur or eternal flames, I'll tread that path by my own will." But then, he fell silent. Something bright, blindingly bright, appeared before him. Slowly, his body began to tear apart, scattering and vanishing into the air. And just before he completely disappeared, a moment of clarity struck him. He realized the soul-devouring demonic art wasn't simply about consuming others' souls. Even though he had found the key to mastering it, it was already too late. With his fading voice, he whispered, "In my next life, I want to choose a different path, one far away from this one. All I wish for is a quiet, peaceful life." And with those final words, his soul vanished completely, claimed by death. The story now shifts to a tranquil place, untouched by war. A peaceful estate known as the home of the Golden Wall, a powerful merchant organization. There, a young man sat idly by a pond, staring at his reflection on the water's surface. From behind, a young servant named So-So called out, "Young master, you're here again. Please, let's return before your food gets cold." At those words, the young man instinctively prepared to strike, ready to kill the servant for speaking so casually. So-So's eyes widened in shock as he saw his master raise his hand, as if slicing through air to sever a neck. That young man was Byok Taeson, the second son of the Golden Wall merchant family. With a confused expression, Soso asked what had happened to him. It had been 10 days, and Taeson had been acting strange. But Taeson ignored the question. He stared at his own palm and muttered to himself, I can't believe I couldn't even sever such a thin neck. Damn it. Why is this pathetic body so weak? He then looked down into the pond again, examining his reflection. Frustrated, he grumbled, I hate this face. All I see is someone who looks like a woman. It turns out that the heavenly demon had awakened inside the body of Taeson, a frail young man. Not long after, he returned home to eat the meal prepared by Soso, but as he tried to eat, pain racked his body. Even holding a pair of chopsticks felt like a struggle. He muttered, This body is worse than garbage. Hearing this, Soso gently scolded him. Young master, please don't say things like that. I heard a brilliant physician is coming to treat you. You'll get better. Just have faith. Taeson scoffed. What could a physician I've never even heard of possibly do? Soso replied again, Young master, I've told you this so many times. You mustn't think like that. Positive thoughts bring positive outcomes. Taeson then murmured to himself, It's been 10 days since I woke up in this fragile body. Out of curiosity, I dug into who this body originally belonged to. His name is Byok Taeson, the second son of the Golden Wall merchant family, one of the most prominent clans in the Wuhan region. He has no parents, only an older brother who runs the family business. When I awakened, I realized this man's body was in a horrifying state. He suffers from an unusual illness no doctor has been able to cure. He's completely useless, can't even dress himself or feed himself. And the worst part? He has such a ridiculously handsome face. I feel disgusted just looking at it. But the biggest problem of all is that all his meridians are severed. He could die at any moment. Damn it, I can't believe I was given a dying body for my second life. For now, I'll focus on staying alive. I'll temporarily use soul energy to reconnect the broken meridians, then gradually reinforce them until they're fully healed and stabilized. But there's a catch. The only way to do that is by using the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art. The real issue is, how do I gather souls in this life? In my previous life, I could kill anyone and steal their soul without hesitation. But if I try that again in this life, I'll face the same consequences. I can't let that happen, not after being granted such a rare second chance. Just before I died, I uncovered a hidden truth about the Soul-Devouring Demonic Art. If I use it correctly, I may be able to reach an entirely new realm, one no heavenly demon has ever seen before. Later that day, Soso was stunned when Taeson said he wanted to go out for a walk. If you're planning to go somewhere, I'll accompany you, Soso offered. I know this city better than anyone. Casually, Taeson replied that he was going to a brothel for some business. Soso's face turned bright red in shock. Young master, perhaps it would be better if you brought one of the guards, maybe Cheon Kyungwan. But when she saw Taeson's blank stare, Soso quickly added, I'm sorry if I've overstepped, young master. I'm just surprised. This is the first time you've ever wanted to go to a place like that. Taeson smirked. If you want to come, then come with me. We're going to have some fun there. Annoyed, Soso blurted out, Absolutely not. That's no place for someone like me. A little later, as the afternoon wore on, Taeson was ready to head to the brothel in town. As she adjusted her master's clothes, Soso murmured to herself, I don't know why, but it feels like young master is acting differently. And now, out of the blue, he wants to go to a brothel. I'm so curious about what's happening to him. As the day grew later, Taeson asked where the person accompanying him to the brothel was. Soso replied, Please be patient, young master. I'm sure he'll arrive just in time. After all, he's someone who does nothing but train and protect you. Soso looked at him with a concerned expression, then added, Young master, I just hope you're not too hard on yourself. Hearing that, Taeson asked, What do you mean by that? Soso replied, Well, I've noticed you seem so desperate about your condition. I just hope you can hold on a little longer, at least until the doctor arrives to help you. Taeson murmured, After dealing with so many people hiding their true intentions behind masks, I've finally learned to distinguish between sincerity and deceit. So I'm quite sure the words and actions of this girl are nothing but genuine. At that moment, Taeson smiled, feeling that the warmth he received from her wasn't bad at all. Soso was taken aback when Taeson mentioned that the guard accompanying him had arrived. Sure enough, Soso was shocked to hear someone knocking at the gate. When Soso asked, How could he know when he doesn't even use martial arts? Taeson muttered, How could I not notice? He has such a powerful energy. As the figure stood before Taeson, he immediately bowed and said, Young master, it's been a long time since we last met. How are you feeling now? The guard was named Cheon Kyungwan, and he was one of the elite forces known as the Sword Dragon Troops. Seeing him, Taeson thought to himself, He's like a sword. His energy is strong and sharp, as if he could cut through anything in his path. I'm certain he's not just any elite guard. I can feel how long he's trained to reach this level. The Golden Wall merchant family. Could they be more than just ordinary people? A little while later, they arrived at the most famous brothel in the Wuhan region. It was called the Fragrant Flower House. one of the top 3 brothels in the city. After securing their horses in the stable, they quickly made their way to the entrance. However, Kyung-won stopped just before the door and said he would wait outside. Hearing this, Tae-san asked, "Aren't we both here at a brothel?" "What's your plan, just waiting outside?" Kyung-won responded, "Young master, I'll stand guard outside. I don't want anything to disturb you inside." But Kyung-won went silent when he heard Tae-san say, "Are you sure you can protect me from out here if something happens inside? So keep quiet and follow me, because we're going to enjoy ourselves until we're satisfied." Kyung-won still refused, saying that he couldn't go inside the brothel with Tae-san. With a sharp look, Tae-san said, "What can't you do? Is it enjoying yourself or following my orders?" Immediately, Kyung-won fell silent. His face turned pale as he felt the pressure of Tae-san's gaze. This was the first time he couldn't keep his composure. Then, patting Kyung-won on the shoulder, Tae-san spoke again. "If you can protect me while having fun, that would be great. But if you can't, at least stay close to me." Feeling nervous after being intimidated by Tae-san's intense gaze, Kyung-won had no choice but to obey his master's command. Seeing this, Tae-san couldn't help but smile, feeling satisfied that Kyung-won didn't resist him at all. He then led Kyung-won into the brothel, telling him that he could have as much fun as he wanted while they were there. As they entered, they were greeted by beautiful women who were the courtesans of the establishment. With confidence, Tae-san walked deeper into the room, eager not to waste any opportunity to enjoy himself with them. A while later, they entered a room where a feast had been prepared by the women. However, noticing that his guard was nowhere in sight, Tae-san asked the women if they knew where Kyung-won was. They explained that the guard was stationed by the entrance, as he didn't want to enter the banquet hall. Beside him, one of the women poured a glass of drink for Tae-san. They treated him kindly, aware that he was the second son of a very influential family in the Wuhan region. When Tae-san mentioned that he didn't want to drink the beverage, one of the women asked what they should do if he refused to drink it. Casually, Tae-san replied, "All I want to hear are the rumors people are saying about me." Tae-san thought that coming to a brothel, which had no connection to the Golden Wall family, was the best way to gather information. He continued, "Tell me everything you know about the second son of the Golden Wall family. If you tell me everything, I'll make sure we play 2 rounds as a reward." Soon after, Tae-san managed to get the information he was looking for. They told him that Tae-san had inherited 1,000 gold coins, a noble house, and several brothels. However, due to his declining health, he had lost his power and influence. As a result, all his remaining inheritance had been passed on to his older brother, Byok Tae-soo. Tae-san murmured, "This is a rumor everyone in Wuhan knows, but I would never have learned this if I had just stayed at home." Tae-san then stood up from his seat, saying he was ready to start with one of them. He added that he only wanted one woman tonight, as his current condition didn't allow him to enjoy himself with them all. At that moment, he chose a beautiful woman named Hwaryong to serve him and have fun with. When they were alone, Tae-san made his way to the bed and called Hwaryong to come closer. He then asked, "Hwaryong, tell me, how long have you been living in this brothel?" With a smile, Hwaryong replied that she had been living there for 10 years, ever since her parents had abandoned her. Hearing this, Tae-san simply smiled and then invited Hwaryong to start enjoying the night. Meanwhile, the other women whispered among themselves. They wondered, why did Tae-san only choose one woman tonight? At that moment, they questioned, can Tae-san really do much, given what they knew of his frail and weak condition? However, they were all suddenly shocked when they heard Hwaryong scream loudly. It was a sound that could not be distinguished between pain and pleasure. The scream echoed through the house, reaching even the lower floors. Everyone present there was stunned after hearing the scream. They were all curious. I wonder why that scream echoed so loudly, even though we know this room is soundproof. Laughing, one of them remarked, I didn't expect the second son to have such skills. Honestly, he's making me feel envious. Meanwhile, Hwaryong had been screaming for so long that it seemed like more than 3 hours had passed. However, what actually happened wasn't what they all thought. In reality, Tae-san had simply placed one of his hands on her forehead. With a blank expression, Tae-san was using a technique known as the Soul-Eater Demon Art to filter the woman's tainted soul essence. This video ends here, but the story isn't over yet. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next part.